On day 5, we will leave Tiberias and head to Jerusalem along the Jordan River. We'll stop at Beit Shan, and then we'll continue along the Jordan River, going through the West Bank area. As we near the Dead Sea, we'll go and stop at Jericho, and then head up into the hills to Jerusalem. Drive through Jerusalem to Bethlehem, spend some time in Bethlehem, and then come back to Jerusalem to spend the night. Here comes the Aqua bus now. We'll get our luggage out and load it on the bus, and then load ourselves on the bus and head out.
80 kilometers. You can look actually at the exit of the Jordan River, the water getting out of the Sea of Galilee. The Sea of Galilee, the Sea of Life, has the same water of the Jordan River. The river going on. It's a very small river. Sometimes you feel like it's not even going. And we can see clearly now the Jordanian borders. Over that cliff over there, that small hill over there, you can see the Jordanian.
As we drive along the Jordan Rift Valley, to our left will be that valley. You'll almost never see the river down in it. And across in the distance, we'll be able to see the Transjordanian Plateau. That's where Jordan is. It's an agricultural area, and you'll see many greenhouses along the way. On the right will be the mountains of Samaria. This is also the West Bank area of the modern Israel. Our first stop will be Beit Shan. Let's join Explorer Deborah.
Explorer Deborah, heading into Beit Shan. See what she can discover. Let's follow her and see what she will discover today on this trek. Deborah the Explorer.
Quit taping from behind.
Beit Shan is an old town, dating back to 3500 BC, the Stone Age. It was originally up on top of the hill, but now has spread to be the largest ruins in Israel. The main ruins we'll be looking at today come from the Roman period. During this time period, it was called Scythopolis, after the nurse of Dionysus, who was supposedly born here. It was destroyed in 749 by an earthquake and very little rebuilt. It's over 400 feet below sea level. We will be exploring the area around the Acropolis mainly today, but we'll also drive by the amphitheater on the way out of town, and Deborah had to harass another cat. The first thing we'll look at is the Roman theater. The background was over 6 stories tall and called the Scaena Franz. The seating area would have looked like this, but now it's been destroyed to this, and would have seated about 7,000 people. Let's look around a little bit. The exits in that time period were called vomitaria, for the people vomited out after this play. As we can see from this, arches would have come up and supported a whole second layer of the theater. Scythopolis was a resort area in the Roman time, and people came from all over the Roman Empire here. They had one of the largest bathhouses in Israel. Let's take a look around. This is what it might have looked like at that time, but we'll only actually be looking at a very small part of it. And this is the caldarium, or hot room. A floor would have been suspended over these pillars, and also heat coming up the side in order to heat this room like a steam room. This is what it was found like before it was restored. They also had toilets here where you'd sit and had flowing water underneath you to drain it out. As we look around, we'll see bathtubs, swimming pools, and even showers. This was a very sophisticated system here. We now head over to the main street, or Cardo of the city. It would have had shops on each side and a main street with a colonnade down each side in order to give shade for the shops. Let's look around here some. It would have probably looked something like this. Down the center of the street was a covered drainage system so that they could drain sewage and water out, and there were mosaics everywhere. And the columns had Dionysus on it, for he was the god of this city. Now with our free time, we take two different paths. Some of the energetic ones decide to climb the Acropolis and look up there. I had been up before, so I decided not to put forth the effort and just explore down on ground level. When he first started working here, it looked something like this at Beit Shan. Now all the ruins have been exposed, even up on top of the Acropolis, and it's an adventure to look around. They didn't move to the lower city until Roman times, so the oldest ruins are up on top of the Acropolis, like this Egyptian palace that's been restored. Also, there was a temple complex here with many different temples being added through the years. Seti I, Egyptian pharaoh, added one. Ramesses II, the great builder. And there was one to Dagon by the Philistines. This is the one that Saul's body was hung on after his defeat. And there's a beautiful view over the valley and over the Roman ruins. Let's just look around some. The less energetic group will explore the ruins at the base of the Acropolis. This marble-colored building here was the Nymphaea. It had fountains flowing down it and statues to the god. Some are just more energetic than others. Climb mountains and run up a hill. Here they come. The amphitheater held about 7,000 people in 10 to 12 rows of seats. It was destroyed in the 749 earthquake. As we head southward again, we see the Israeli fence and road. Between the double fences, mines, the road has drugs so that they can see footprints to keep terrorists out. We now head out again southward toward Jericho. As we do, on our right hand side will be the West Bank and the hills of Samaria. We'll be seeing dry riverbeds called wadis that'll fill up in the rainy season, and lots of caves everywhere. We'll be passing Palestinian villages with 2, 3, 4-story buildings and even more being added. This is because when children get married, instead of moving out and building a house, which is tremendously expensive, they just build a story on their parents' house. We'll also be seeing lots of date palm trees as we head along the Jordan Valley. They're everywhere. They're used for decorations and also for raising dates for crops. Let's look at some of them around the country. We'll also be seeing lots of Bedouins as we go along. Notice them leading their flock, not driving their flock. As we get further south, we enter the wilderness of Judea, and over there in Jordan, the Israelis coming across the Jordan River through this desert would see Jericho as a great oasis. Here's what it would look like from Wadi Kelt. This area seems to be very unhospitable, but this is also the area where you cross into Jordan on the Allenby Bridge. And this is the checkpoint going that way. And this is the checkpoint going into Jericho. We're crossing into a new country now. There are actually 3 Jerichos: modern Jericho, Old Testament Jericho, and New Testament Jericho. We'll be visiting the modern and old.
And we have Muslims and Christians living here in the Palestinian Authority.
Our first thing in Jericho is to do a little shopping at the handicraft store.
Excuse me, please. I'd like you, before you start, to watch what we have here. We have very interesting glass in this area. We call it Hebron glass, hand-blown glass, and it's very strong glass. Watch how strong is it. You see? All the glass.
It's interesting to note that most signs are in both Arabic and English for some reason. Let's look around modern Jericho for a while. The sycamore tree helps us to remember Zacchaeus, who climbed a sycamore tree in Jericho to see Jesus and had an encounter with him. As we come to Old Testament Jericho, we see the Mount of Temptation, where Jesus would have been tempted by Satan to bow down to him. It has an unfinished church on top and a monastery called Carantel on the side that just hangs there. Now it can be accessed by cable car. At Tel El Satan, we will be visiting Old Testament Jericho. Let's head up the hill. As we look over Jericho, there is Elijah Spring, which is the only water source for the area. First, the lecture, and devotion, then we'll look around at the tale a little bit.
That means this place existed 10,000 years ago. It's been excavated well. But remember the spring, which is still feeding Jericho since the ancient times, even up to now. Everything that you see green is because of this spring.
On sword, so who knows where that was, but somewhere near here, imagine him walking through this desert stuff. With a drawn sword in his hand, Joshua went up to him and asked, "Are you for us or for our enemies?" "Neither," he replied, "but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come." And Joshua fell face.
Here we can see the ruins of the mud brick walls that fell down. This 29-foot round Stone Age tower from 7000 BC is about the only thing we're seeing right now. Most of it is just eroded away after being excavated. It's a good place to get a picture made and then to head down and see Elijah Spring before heading back through the checkpoint and on toward Jerusalem. We'll now be headed back up into the hills to the west toward Jerusalem. Along the way, we'll see a herd of camels. We'll also be seeing many Bedouin camps. It's interesting how things have changed here. 10 years ago when I was here and these pictures were made, they all lived in tents. But now their structures are changing and they're more in permanent structures made out of tin and wood. Let's have a look at them. On the way to Jerusalem, we'll be passing Me'ali Adunim. It's an Israeli town up on the hill on the West Bank and one of the largest Israeli settlements in the West Bank. Then we'll climb up the backside of the Mount of Olives and on the way see Bethany, a sad situation. We cannot go see the hometown of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus because of the Israeli security walls that now surround it. It just takes too long to get through it. And then through a tunnel, and when we come out, we gain our first view of Jerusalem, that beautiful city that pilgrims have come to for years.
And remember the line I told you, the 1948 division line, when Israel claimed itself as a state? This was the line. This was the line. That side was Jordanian on the left. This side was Israeli. And this road, it had mines in the middle section.
We drive by our hotel, the Olive Tree Hotel, but we won't be going there right now. One of the interesting things in Jerusalem is wherever you dig, you find something archaeologically. It's really a nightmare for trying to build things here. This is the Hinnon Valley. You'll see there's many apartment complexes in the modern city of the Israeli side. This monastery supposedly marks where Elijah rested on the way to Mount Horeb, fleeing Jezebel after defeating her prophets on Mount Carmel. And this is the Herodium, built by Herod the Great as one of his palaces. He took the entire left hill and moved it on top of the right hill. It would have probably looked something like this in Herod's time, and it's a beautiful palace. With the lower palace, it's the largest palace in the world at its time. And here's the security checkpoint going to Bethlehem. This security wall winds kind of serpentine through Bethlehem, chopping it into pieces, as you can see from this National Geographic picture. We'll be going through Bethlehem for a few minutes. And then we'll be stopping at the Nissan restaurant to eat lunch.
You should not have walked off the road.
They have very many beautiful biblical paintings on their wall. Let's look at a few of them. Then we'll head next door to the Bethlehem News Store for some shopping. Gotta do the shopping. But down in the basement is an interesting place. This is the wood shop where they do the wood carving. Then we head upstairs to see what beautiful things can be bought. The street vendors are out selling cherries and other fruit to people that stop by. Let's look around Bethlehem some more as we head to the Church of the Nativity. Here again you can see the solar water heaters they use for their houses. We now arrive at the Church of the Nativity. This church was built in the 4th century by Helena, Constantine's mother. It was a huge church. This open area was actually part of an atrium. Let's explore with Deborah the Explorer and see what she can find while she's here. The door has been cut down over the centuries to keep people from riding horses and other things in. The small door we see here was made in the 1500s. Deborah doesn't even have to duck to go in. She's so short. Let's go in and look at this church that was built by Helena in the 4th century. This is the oldest church in the world. It was the only one in the Holy Land built by Helena that was not destroyed by the Arabs when they came in. They said the people on the wall look just like us. From this aerial photograph you can see that the Church of the Nativity is formed like a cross. And next door is the Church of St. Catherine, which we'll also be visiting. Hadrian came into the area to try and destroy the Christian faith. He built a temple to Adonis here. Later, Helena removed this temple and built her church. We can see that a Roman Catholic service is going on at this time. We'll be listening to it as we go through the church. Our reason for being here is the birth of Jesus. The caves underneath the church were used as stables, and one of them was pointed out as the one Jesus was born in. We'll have to go down steps to get to those, and it's very crowded. It's interesting at these sites that once the tourist time is up, you can just about walk right into them. We'll do the same in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. As we walk down the well-worn steps, we come to the cave, the stable where Jesus is born. On the right is a 14-point star, signifying the 14 stations of the cross. This is such a sensitive area that in 1847, when the Greek Orthodox Church moved this star, it started a war, the Crimean War.
Hurry up. The Star of Bethlehem. Manger behind you. Take a look, please, and go upstairs.
In the same room is the manger he was supposedly laid in.
Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying,
Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him.
And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him.
At the time we arrive, a Roman Catholic service is going on. As soon as the Roman Catholic service ends, the Greek Orthodox get ready for their service. We'll watch and listen to it a little. We're trying to wait and get a look under these doors, for underneath them are the original mosaics from Helena's church, which would make them about 1,700 years old. It looks like we're not going to be able to do that, so we head over to the Church of St. Catherine next door and go into the caves there. These are extensions of the stables that would have been in the Church of the Nativity. And in fact, through this door, if you went through it, you'd be back into the cave we were in before. You can see how these are caves. In these caves are some special things, like a place to remind us of St. Joseph's dream about going to Egypt. Also, it's here where Jerome translated the first entire Bible, called the Vulgate, into Latin. As we go back up into the Church of St. Catherine, it looks like they're about to have a wedding there, or some special service. As we go out into the courtyard, we see a statue of Jerome with his foot on a skull, signifying knowledge overcoming Satan. And then it's time to head out. We pass the water sellers trying to sell us a cold bottle of water, take one last look at Bethlehem, and we head out through Bethlehem, headed to the Shepherd's Field Church. As we walk to the church, we need to remember that there are several places to help us remember the shepherds on that night in Bethlehem. This one has a cave where sheep might have been kept at one time. Let's remember some of the stories that happened in this area as our guide shares them.
Location, in these fields, Boaz and Ruth met each other, got married. They gave birth to Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of King David. King David was born as well in Bethlehem. When the angels of the Lord came upon the shepherds, they were afraid. But then afterwards they went joyfully to the church of the Nativity. Because I told you, the cave of the Nativity was open to the east. And they could see the light. And they followed and they went forward.
As we're leaving Bethlehem, we get a little taste of what it might be to be a Palestinian. We have to get off the bus and go through the checkpoint, walking with armed guards watching our every move. And then it was time to head to the Olive Tree Hotel, where we'll be spending the rest of our time. It's located very close to the old city, only a few minutes walk. And here's a few queens sitting on their thrones. We head down to eat. And then we have a lecture for the night.
So let's do Galilee and try and put together what you've done. Help me, I like it.
And then the sun starts to set over Jerusalem. And night sets in as the moon rises. And this ends a very busy day 5.